Barrasso.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Good to see you again. It seems every time we have a chance to visit, I bring up the issue of energy security, and I was very happy to see President Trump talking with our NATO allies and specifically with Germany about their ongoing dependence on Russia for energy, and specifically the upcoming concern with the Nord Stream 2 and increasing that dependence by Germany of Russian energy. I know the President met today with the European Commission President to talk about energy security issues. I just ask your assessment of our NATO allies and if they understand the security threat and the leverage that they're giving Russia by this over-reliance on Russian energy resources, because it doesn't seem to be acting in their own security best interest.
Senator, it's a fair question. I think their willingness to acknowledge that risk varies. I think some European countries accept that risk or are prepared to act in a way that might cost them a little bit more money to prevent that risk. I think there's probably a continuum of European countries. This issue has been raised by this administration consistently in every forum, directly with the Germans as well. The Germans just don't see it that way.
Are NATO allies in the European Union doing anything in their discussions with Germany in terms of ending this Nord Stream 2 pipeline project? Again,
mixed. Within the European Union, there are some countries that share our position. There are some that do so publicly. There are others that do so privately. That is, they have concerns about speaking out against other European Union countries, so their conversations have been, their sharing of their view on Nord Stream 2 with us has been private. I suspect private with the other parties that they're opposing as well.
Well, I'd appreciate everything that you continue to do, and I'm grateful for what the President's doing in terms of trying to lessen this influence of the Russian energy on the European Union and certainly on Germany. Russian officials, after the meeting with President Trump, and I know you made the point about the President not making additional statements on specific agreements. I guess a Russian ambassador has talked about important verbal agreements on New START and INF at the Helsinki summit. So I just want to ask a little bit about that. If there are anywhere where have specific agreements been made between President Putin and President Trump on arms control treaties?
No, we're still working our way through. These issues were raised. I think the President said that. We are trying to get the Russians back inside the INF, trying to use every tool possible to get them to acknowledge that they are in non-compliance and get them moved back back inside the box. And then we are, the administration, President Trump's administration, is considering how best to respond to that, both on the INF treaty and the New START. And what are the best modalities to achieve what we're looking for is to decrease the risk of proliferation or a potential nuclear conflict between our two countries.
Yeah, it did seem, I appreciate your efforts there. I think it did seem that President Trump's taking the right decisions in terms of, with these intermediate nuclear weapons, in terms of providing for Poland the missile capacity there to defend. The previous administration pulled out that capacity, and so I'm happy to see that. With New START, I always felt that was a treaty that had significant concessions on our side and very little, if anything, from Russia in terms of the number of the missiles, because they didn't have to give up much, if anything, and we had to give up quite a bit. So I'd be very concerned about what that next treaty may look like.
The NF treaty, similarly, right, restricts just a couple countries.
Yeah.
And the world has changed dramatically since that treaty began. So we're conducting a full-on review so that we can respond and then work with Russia to get an outcome that's in America's interest with respect to the full scope of the proliferation agreements between the two countries, the nuclear proliferation agreements between the two countries.
The President yesterday was at the VFW convention, the National Convention of Veterans of Foreign War. I wanted to talk a little bit about after the discussion in Singapore with a North Korean leader and the signing of a declaration committing to the return of remains of American soldiers to the United States. There were many U.S. troops who have lost in North Korea. I understand that we have our military has moved coffins to the demilitarized zone to prepare for North Korea's return of the remains. This is an issue that comes up when I talk to veterans in Wyoming, and I wouldn't be surprised if it came up when the President was there with the VFW. Could you give us any update on North Korea's compliance with what they had agreed to do relating with the remains of our veterans?
So they reaffirmed their commitment to return remains that they have in their possession, as well as to begin to work on, there's an agreement that had been in place previously about how we would conduct recovery operations inside of North Korea. and we will, in relatively short order, if the North fulfills its commitment, begin to put teams back in place such that we can begin not only the repatriation of existing remains, but the recovery of remains that have not yet been recovered. I understand that it's not directly on point with denuclearization. I get that. But boy, for the families that are missing loved ones, it's a big deal, and I'm very hopeful that the North Koreans will continue to move towards honoring the commitment that Chairman Kim made.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I'm very grateful for your continued commitment to all these efforts. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.